Segment 3, joined by Hall of Famer. I don't get to be in the presence of Hall of Famers all that often. Mike DeCourcy joins us. One of my favorite reads, listens in the world of college basketball because you provide such a balanced, sensical, mature approach. Maybe it's because you're at a mature age. I don't know, Mike.
Thanks.
You look at this, and obviously there's a lot of gnashing of teeth around Purdue right now because the Boilermakers have lost 3 in a row. But we're seeing crazy stuff. I mean, in the Big Ten, Northwestern goes to Ohio State and wins by 23 without a couple of its best players. Give us your perspective, not only where Purdue is, but how harried this Big Ten 18-team Big Ten league is.
Well, I think one of the things that I talked about when the leagues expanded to the degree that they have was that, as is the case in the NFL or the NHL or NBA, people were going to have to get used to swings. In some cases, it could be a night like Ohio State had against Northwestern, but it could be full seasons, as might be the case at North Carolina, for instance.
Yeah.
Wherein teams are just not as overwhelming, dominant, excellent as they have been often in different iterations of college athletics. This is different now. Very good teams, very good programs are going to have very bad years, and very good teams are going to have very bad nights. Because you look at UCLA playing at home, chance to go 500 wins for Mick Cronin, coming off a string, I think, of 8 of 9 victories, including that terrific road win Friday night against Indiana.
Yeah.
Minnesota comes in. You think, okay, well, this is easy. Minnesota, they won at SC, but whatever. This is gonna be easy. And then for a while it was, and that's even worse sometimes because it convinces you that you can relax, and then all of a sudden it happens. And that's college athletics now at the highest level. You relax, you pay, and UCLA did. I don't think that's what's going on with Purdue. I think Purdue has specific flaws that Matt has acknowledged. That absence of a rim protector, would Daniel Jacobson have been that player if he'd been healthy for the full year? Maybe. But without him, that player doesn't exist in a Purdue uniform. And so you're having to get by with basically a 6'8" center, who offensively is phenomenal, but who defensively is also not only 6'8", but he's relatively understand ground bound. So he's not going to get up and block a lot of shots. And that's an area that the Boilers have trouble in. And teams that they're playing now as the schedule toughens know to try to take advantage of that. And for the last 3 games have been successful.
Yeah, when you look at the coaches Purdue's faced, they do get paid to figure stuff out, and that's the. All right, you're one of the teams and specifically for Purdue. I mean, you do start at a good place with very seasoned guards and Smith and Lawyer. It's going to be tough though on Sunday against Indiana because you don't know what you're going to see out of the Hoosiers. They've lost 6 of 7, but they had Purdue in the last 2 minutes in Mackey Arena. They were ahead. So how do you view that game on Sunday? And it's going to be a challenge for the Boilermakers, one would think.
Yeah, and I think I think it helps from a Purdue standpoint. I think it helps that it's a rivalry game. Yeah. Because I suppose when you're in a 3-game losing streak, you're not going to have that relaxed idea, and you're on the road. But I think it helps them to know that they need to be excellent in order to succeed on the road in that environment, where even if Indiana fans are frustrated with this season, they're going to want to try to make that season better. At least I'm not going to say it's going to make the season, but it'll make it better if they can take down Purdue, their arch rival. So it's a challenge for absolutely for the Boilers. They have to do a good job of keeping Miles Rice and Trey Galloway out of the lane. That's not been a strength for the Boilers over that 3-game losing streak. They have not protected the perimeter well. The way you protect your absence of rim protection, the way you cope with that is to keep players out of the lane. And that's not something that's gone well recently for the Boilers. They have to do a better job of keeping guys on the perimeter. And I think Rice is the biggest threat there. because he's the quickest, the most dynamic guard that Indiana's deploying. And then Galloway is just he is an underrated athlete. He can, especially straight line. He knows how to get. He's not super elusive. He's not Chris Paul. He doesn't go side to side and then get by you. But he understands how to get. He's very fast, straight, and so he understands how to get that one step on you, and then he's gone. And so that's something that Purdue has to be aware of as well. And if they can do that, I think they can do a good job defensively against the Hoosiers. But that's the primary concern at that end of the floor. And then offensively, I think that one of the things that has led to a 3-game losing streak is not just that they aren't defending at the level necessary, but in order to counter the struggle on defense, they need to shoot the basketball better. Yeah. They've got guys who can shoot who aren't making shots at the level that is necessary to overcome that defensive concern, the short-term defensive concern and the long-term defensive concern. You got to shoot the ball better. The most remarkable thing about this season to me, Alan, is that I thought that Miles Colvin and Camden Heide were going to make major steps forward. Yeah. Maybe not to supplant the players that were in place, but to really make Purdue just so deep and rich on the perimeter. And the fact that they are where they are and have won the games that they've won without that happening. Each has had very good games. You don't beat Ole Miss without Miles, for instance. But although each has had very good games, it's not been their game to game. And I'm sure that's a frustration inside the program because we know that they have it in them because, like I said, like you don't go out and score 20 against one of the better defensive teams, half-court defensive teams in the country in Ole Miss if you can't play. So why isn't it there on a nightly basis?
Yeah, it is a topic that's discussed all the time in West Lafayette, certainly those two. All right, you like in the Big Ten, in your top 12 ranking, you had 2 teams, Michigan and Wisconsin. Who do you like the best? I mean, Michigan's going to be in very good shape to win the Big Ten, at least a share of the Big Ten championship. But Wisconsin was one of the most impressive teams I've seen when they came to Mackey Arena. And that game really wasn't all that close in the second half. Talk about those 2 teams in the landscape of the conference moving ahead.
They're both extraordinary because they have such different approaches than most teams out there.
Yeah.
Michigan, because of Danny Wolf and what he's able to do at 7 feet, he's basically a 7-foot guard. Although that's not to say he doesn't do his job defensively or on the boards, but he's got guard skills. He's got guard vision. He can play in so many different ways off 2 feet, off 1 foot. He's got the ability to make plays that covers at Michigan for the fact that Trey Donaldson is a terrific player and a terrific player who nominally is their point guard. And now that they're not turning the basketball over so regularly, and Trey is a big part of that, they are really a much more competent offensive team now. You can't count on them to give you the basketball. So now it's going and it's getting into the hands of Danny Wolf to create. It's really hard to cope with. Wisconsin, because they have basically two 7-footers, Nolan Winter and Stephen Crow, who both are able to play on the perimeter. Their ball skills, their mobility, the fact that they can also, especially Crow, can go inside and play singled up and score. Really a tough thing to deal with. And then you've got guys like Tanjay and Blackwell who they allow more creative freedom than they've allowed most perimeter players at Wisconsin over the past 8 or 9 years. They haven't had a lot of those guys. Johnny Davis, for the better part of his senior season, or his last season, I guess I should say, I think he was a junior, but his last season at Wisconsin was that kind of player. But then he got hurt. He was limited, and that team lost steam. But Tanjay is a very creative wing. Blackwell, again, really can get his own shot. Not the most, again, not Jason Kidd in terms of creating, but can get his own shot and then run the system to get other shots. So It's a very difficult team to play against. I love both of those teams going into March because they have so many different ways to play and succeed. We saw Michigan bring out zone defense some. I like that because it's a change up that coaches have a hard time preparing for sometimes because they don't see it a ton in the course of a regular season. So I like both of them going into March. I think they each have has a terrific chance to do well in the NCAA tournament.
The narrative in the first half of the Big Ten season, Braden Smith was, and maybe still is, maybe the best point guard in the country. Tanjay certainly does, and other guys have come forward. Take it, there's a lot on his shoulders, and he's playing 40 minutes a game, or only 39 minutes and 30 seconds against Michigan State. But my point is, he's a kid that is hyper competitive. It's February. It's a grueling schedule. What do you see from him? And he's been terrific for 3 years, but it is a tough challenge, one would think.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to do that, but he's conditioned to do that now.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it becomes too much of a problem. It might be a problem if they had a 4-game run or a 3-game run, depending on where they land in the bracket in Indianapolis at the Big Ten tournament. I don't know that necessarily would be great for him to do that 3 days in a row and then go into the NCAA tournament and get a Thursday game, for instance. I mean, that kind of scenario would worry me a little bit about his load management, as they say in the NBA now.
Yeah.
But I think he's fine relative to that. I don't see a significant problem for him in playing